Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. First, thanks for coming to my channel. I appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button before you leave, that really helps YouTube promote my channel when I get more likes. So if you wouldn't mind, that'd be great. Today I wanted to do, I've made a few kind of spectacular looking necklace pieces lately. And I wanted to do something similar to that, but I wanted to do one that kind of harkens back to the early part of the 20th century, kind of the 20s, 30s, that kind of era. So it's got aspects of Art Deco in it probably. But I have a couple of pretty amethysts I'm going to use. One's an emerald cut and one's a little round one. They match reasonably well. So I think I'm going to put them together into something that I think will be pretty and kind of formal. So let's get started on that today. Let's look at my little sketchbook that I drew some stuff up. Some of the ideas I was thinking about. And let me show you the stones real quick. Where'd you go, little stone grabber thingy? I'm guessing there's a name for these things, but I call them the stone grabber thingy apparently. Okay, so here's a little emerald cut amethyst. Let's see how big he is. It's about 9 by, probably 9 by 7, I'm guessing. 9 by 7 looks like. And then I got a couple of these little amethysts. I have to decide which one of them looks closer to this one. I think I like this one better. I'm going to go with that one. So these two keepers, I'm going to set this one elsewhere for now. I like these kind of necklaces. I'm not exactly sure. If anybody knows what these are called, where it's got a central piece here that's connected to two pieces of chain that are split, or just a chain on each side, and then something dangles from the central piece. And sometimes there's multiple pieces. I made something like that, this one a little while back, which let's see if you can see that. See, it's got the central piece here connected to some other pieces, and it kind of connects to a separate chain. So I don't know what they call those, so if anybody knows what that is, tell me in the comments. I've always wondered if there was a name for that style. But, so with these stones, initially I was thinking really boxy, like this, and I do kind of like that idea. My wife thought I should throw in some curves, and I thought, well, that might be kind of cool, so I came up with that. And then eventually we kind of kept brainstorming and came up with something like this. So I think I'm going to go with something similar to this. So it'll have three components really. This top piece here, this central piece, and the bottom piece. And this is where the amethyst will go. Be framed with some 14 gauge square wire, and I'm going to put balls right here in order to mirror the shape of the circular shape of the stone that's going to be up in this piece here. So, and they'll be connected. I'm going to put a tube on the back of these, so you can't see it, and then run some 18 gauge wire in a rectangular shape through there and solder it closed so that it's kind of a double hinge. Same thing up here. I'm going to try and get it to the bars of the hinge to kind of match the curve there, I think. Maybe I should do it down here too. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. But I think to start with, let's make some bezels, and then we'll just basically maybe work our way from the bottom up. So we could go whichever way you want, but I think let's start that way. So let's do some bezels for the two-faceted stones. For the bezels, I usually use a taller bezel because it fits most stones, and then I file it down shorter for what we need. In this case, with this little tiny stone, I may cut it shorter in advance so I don't have to file so much. I could buy shorter bezel, I just never get around to buying it when I get to the end of my shopping list. So, so we'll just cut some of this down for this. But for this one, I think we can just leave it the way it is. I hope it's deep enough, actually. Just barely, though. Yeah, pretty close. We want it to just get up to the top of the, or just barely above the girdle of the stone. So I think we're going to be close. If a tiny bit of the point sticking out the back, I don't think it's going to be a huge deal on this one. I could also elevate that. Well, that back thing is going to be elevated a little bit because of the tube, so I think that'll be okay. So let's just go ahead and make these bezels. When I first started this, I used to be really intimidated by angular stones, but after you do a few of them, it's not as scary as it was at first. I used to always be so worried about screwing up, but honestly, when you screw up is when you learn the most usually. So I look at it, even though it's frustrating sometimes, I look at it as an opportunity to figure out what went wrong, you know? So, in particular, when I was first starting, bezels were super problematic in that not only did they take me a long time, along the way there was, 10 or 12 different ways that I could screw them up, which, I did on a regular basis at the beginning. So I thought bezels were going to be the end of me at first, but it got to be pretty routine after a while. Okay, so I'm trying to get it as tight around here as I can and trying to get the angles close. I don't want to have a lot of excess in here. I'm going to have to build a little steps in here for this to sit on. And so I'll probably use some 18 gauge round wire and just build a couple of rings up that I can sit on inside. That's how I usually do a little step bezel like this. You could also use a piece of sheet that goes around the inside, or just buy pre-made step bezel if you wanted to. The thing that really moved me up into a new level of being able to solder things effectively was when I learned how to pick solder. So if you're interested, I have a video on pick soldering. I'll put a link up there for you. It's worth learning how to do that. It not only does it speed up your process, it allows you to put little tiny bits of solder in real precise places pretty well. And so something that had originally taken me an hour or two to make would, start taking me 10 minutes. That's always a little encouraging when you're, especially if you're thinking of selling your jewelry. You want to be able to make things sort of quickly. So at first I was thinking, gosh, I'd never be able to make any money doing this, because if you pay yourself a decent hourly wage for your efforts, you'd have to charge your pieces way more than anybody would be willing to pay at first, because it takes you a long time. Piece of solder in here. At least most people, unless you're a prodigy. Which I am not. Alright, before we get too far into this, I wanted to thank some people first. I wanted to thank my YouTube subscribers. We just passed 3,800, and that's great. We're heading towards 3,900. Pretty soon it'll be 4,000. That's marvelous. I really appreciate your support, your kind comments, your contributions, the people who've been buying me coffees. That really helps out a lot. It keeps me in supplies and things like that. So that's great. Thank you so much for that. I wanted to thank my patrons over on Patreon too. They're a great deal of the support I get financially. So there's a lot of cool things happening over there. We have a monthly kind of theme thing going where we all, or at least those who choose to participate, make something based on a theme. Last month's was hardware. The month before was architecture. So people are making some really cool stuff. It's kind of a fun place. I also do exclusive tutorials a couple of times a month for them, and do some live streams depending upon the tier that you sign up for. And as always, it's ad-free content over there. So you should check it out. If you're interested, hit the video description down below. There's links to it and information about it. So I'd love to have you as a patron. There's also some other links in there too. There's the Buy Me a Coffee one. There's you can visit my website if you want to see some of my jewelry for sale. I'd love to sell you some of my jewelry. And there's a merch store you can visit. And all right, let's get back to the project. good. Like I said, I'm going to use some 18 gauge round. Oh look, here's a piece of 18 gauge round. I think it's almost time to get a new file. My file's starting to feel a little dull again. If you do this, you deserve a new file. You should go get yourself a new file. Okay, that's pretty close. I'm going to cut it just a little bit big so that I can snip out pieces until it's just the right size. Because I want it to fit in there tightly. And I don't want to cut it too short right off the bat so it has a little gap there when I put it in here. If you're doing this before you solder this in, make sure it's all on one plane if you're doing it this way. Otherwise you'll have a wobbliness that your stone will not sit nicely on. That looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to make two to start with to see if that lifts this up high enough to where we need it. And if it doesn't, we can always do a third one. My new student last night in class was polishing one of her two simple band rings she made, and she lost a hold of it and it bounced off the polishing machine and ended up behind her somewhere in my messy polishing area. So I have to go crawl around there and see if I can find her ring sometime today, probably. Oh, as if you haven't seen my videos before, I always use hard silver solder for pretty much everything, with just a very few exceptions. And I use a spray-on flux called My-T-Flux. I'm just going to file this flush and see if it looks pretty good or not. Now, I think I either need to make the shape around it out of square wire first, or I need to solder the 4 balls on. I'm thinking it might be easiest to solder the balls on first. So I think let's make some little silver balls. Doing silver balls, I always use a charcoal block. Gives you a better bottom surface on the ball when you do that. Looks like about the right size for what I was thinking. I don't want too big ones because I don't want the overall size of the bottom of this piece to be that huge. Made a couple of big giant similar ones, but kind of wanted this one to be a little long but sort of delicate. Now the hard part is I have to figure out if I can get these soldered to the center of each side here. Judging the centers is not good for me sometimes. So I have a bunch of solder over here, so I might just pick a little bit of solder on each one of these balls. Okay, so let's do the side ones first. So one good thing is once these solder to it, we can probably roll them back and forth a little bit till we get them where we want them to be. To my eye, that's pretty good, but after I get it all pieced together, everything, then I'll look at it and be like, one of those is a little bit off. chances are things are going to move a little bit when I put the border on it anyway, because they're not quite lined up how I'd like. But I think do a more realistic scale template here. So if you look at the picture, if you can see this one there, I've got, since the emerald cut's done, they got little shapes like that on the corners. If I'm going to do that, I have to also do that here. I need a piece this long that angles in at that 45-degree angle, and a piece this long that angles in at that 45-degree angle for both sides. So 8 millimeters. And this one is more like 10 millimeters. So that's got to be to the long side of both of those, and then they're going to taper in from that. And I have a nice tool for this, and it's called a miter vise, and it has this 45-degree angle clampy part. It's the official term, the clampy part. But you can run a wire down through it and file a perfect 45-degree angle off of it. It's really nice. So I can use that to get pretty precise angles, and I think that'll help me out here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll show you how I do one, and then I'll make the rest off camera so you don't watch the same thing over and over again. But let me straighten out some square wire first here. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this through the miter vise right along this little pathway there. And gives you a nice 45-degree angle. I usually make the marks so I make sure to point it in the direction it needs to go. So now you could use your saw and just saw it up right against here, but I don't love sawing, and so I'm going to cut this off close to there, and then I'll just stick this out of the miter vise at that angle, right at that point, so I can just file that off there. Okay, that's about 10 millimeters. That's what we want. So I'm going to make one more of those, and then 2 8-millimeter ones. Like that, getting everything lined up just right will be the trick. Now, I think, as long as everything's not too bad, looks pretty good. Looks like we got solid solder joints. Now I can trim these off. I'm not going to trim them right up because this doesn't cut perfectly. Then I'll file them down to where they're flush. Now I'm just going to do a little filing until those are even. Okay, that looked pretty good. So we got that part. Now we need to make some square wires that bend like this. And I think I'll probably make curved ones, and then I'll lay them here, and then I'll cut them to the right length. And then I'll just do 2 straight ones like that. Okay, so I can probably just cut off. So it goes right up to it about there. We have some extra left there to cut off still. These ones we can't really use the miter vise because they're kind of non-standard angles I'm cutting here. So we have to do a little bit of guesswork. As far as I can tell, that's lined up yet. I guess we'll find out. Good. Starting to get the components together. And so I need to put a top on this one. So, like I said, I was going to continue this curve upwards, so I'm going to snip it off kind of in that vein, like that angle, like that kind of. And we can do the same thing we did before, is kind of file off the. I may use the Dremel to clean these up just a little bit so I can get them really smoothed in so it looks like the wire just kind of continues. Alright, I'm just going to go use an abrasive white wheel to kind of clean those up and smooth them a little bit more. Be right back. 2 down, 1 to go. So now we need to do these ones, and I have those little curved ones over here somewhere. Continue the curve. Or in sticky flux. These off, kind of in the same angle they're at, just like we did before. We got that. Now we just got to clean those up as well, and I'll be right back after I do that. Went ahead and made this little bezel. It's pretty much the same as what I did before, but I thought I would go ahead and put it in here. Just going to center it in there, like that. And then I also cut off some tubes to use for the connectors between these guys. And it's a 1.6 millimeter outside diameter sterling silver tube, and it's the kind that 18 gauge wire fits nicely in. So I use that for little hingy kind of things a lot. So that'll be, after we solder this in, I'll solder these guys on the back, and then we'll start connecting things. I need to put, I think I might do behind the tops of these, I might do some little tubes. Alright, let's start soldering some little tubes on the bottoms of things. I think what I'll do is I'll sweat it onto the back of this, and I'll just plop the tube on there. Less chance of any of the solder running into the tube that way. Can't really pick these up with tweezers when they're hot because they'll crush. Oopsie. So sometimes it's easy to lose a hold of them. Come here. I want these to be pretty straight. push them into one of these magnesium blocks so nothing falls off or anything. Okay, so I'm going to let those pickle just a little bit, and then I think see about hooking them all together. This is one of those little delicate soldering operations I have. I got this bent and it's pretty close quarters here, so I need to pick solder a little solder right there, but I don't really want it flowing into any of the tubes or anything, so I'm going to go ahead and use easy for this last one. I'm also going to be doing it on these other connectors. So, but the chain, though, I think I will just leave as a manual unclasp so that you can change it if you want to. Alrighty, so in theory, because this is a separate piece, I should be able to prevent the rest of it from getting up to temperature. I just really need to heat this wire. Looks like we still have movement, at least partial. It hangs pretty straight. I can always do some adjustments later, but I think for this, at this point, I've already cut a chain and I soldered some connectors on the ends of it, and I'll show you how I'm going to connect those to this. But I think this can pickle, and then we can clean it up and set the stone, and then we'll assemble the thing and take some nice pictures of it. My glasses are all dirty. Okay, so I have this done. That's all kind of cleaned up. Alright, so I think I've already kind of filed it down to where it needed to be. I also did one thing on that I do with sharp cornered stones a lot of times when I'm bezel setting them, is I filed the top corner here just a little bit thinner on the bezel. That way it compensates for trying to compress that corner into a space that's too small for it really to fit. Alright, so let's make sure everything's sitting straight. I usually start on the corners on these ones because they're kind of, that'll kind of hold it in place a little bit. You're basically pushing it down until you can't get it to go down any further, making sure it's, you know, laying down symmetrically. Once you got it laid down about as far down as you can get it, then we're going to go ahead and do the burnishing stage. So I may need to do a little cleanup of the Dremel there. However, other than that, we're done. I did solder on. I split a chain here. And I actually soldered on kind of like long squared off U's like this because I thought I would make a little square to catch through that thing instead of a circle, so it kind of matched the style of it. I hope my idea works here because I haven't tested it out. Probably use the Dremel to smooth that out a little bit. There's the piece. I think that came out pretty good. I'm pleased with it. You know, I'll have to play with the angles on the chain there a little bit. It's not sitting just perfect, but I think it'll be okay once it's sitting on someone's sternum there. So, but yeah, I was pleased. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that video. I know I learned a few things making it. I hope you did too. If you wouldn't mind, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. That helps out a great deal for the YouTube's algorithm. Leave some comments if you want. I like suggestions. I like challenges. People asking questions about the video itself is great. I'll try and answer them as soon as I can. You know, but I like the interactions with you guys. So, you know, give me some input, and I'll try to, you know, meet your needs here. Again, you know, check out the video description for the various links that are relevant to my channel, and you know, have a good day. Happy silversmithing. Take care.